Infamous drug lords. Let's start with the guy who didn't just sniff the drug trade, he snorted the whole stash. Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria, or Pablo to his friends and many enemies, was born in 1949 in Rio Negro, Colombia. He was the third of 7 children and grew up in poverty, but he had big dreams, mostly of swimming in piles of cash instead of dirt. See, little Pablo over here was willing to do anything to get out of poverty. Right before his 17th birthday, Escobar dropped out of high school, grew his stash, and jump-started his criminal career. His first crimes involved stealing tombstones, sandblasting their inscriptions, and reselling them. A shady business venture that laid out the foundation for his later, more notorious exploits. Pablo's rise was faster than a viral TikTok. He quickly moved from petty theft to smuggling, and by the 80s, his Medellin cartel was the largest cocaine supplier in the world. At its peak, the Medellin cartel was responsible for up to 80% of the cocaine smuggled into the United States. That's right, little Pablo over there was the Santa of the drug world. Only instead of delivering gifts to good little children around the world, he was supplying cocaine to drug addicts around the world. And his lifestyle was something straight out of a movie. He had mansions, private zoos, and he had so much cash that he stored it in his walls and ceilings. But with great power came great chaos. His methods for maintaining this lifestyle were anything but subtle. Bombings, assassinations, and bribery became his main calling cards. It was said that he killed an upwards of 4,000 people, including numerous police officers and government officials. By the early 90s, the Colombian government and the United States DEA had had enough, labeling Escobar as the most wanted man in the world. On December 1st, 1993, Pablo was celebrating his 44th birthday, enjoying cake, wine, and a shitload of marijuana. But on the very next day, his hideout in Medellin would be discovered by the Colombian government. While Colombian forces would storm his building, Escobar and a bodyguard managed to get to the roof's building. A chase and a gunfight then ensued, where Escobar was fatally shot. Although some speculate that he took himself out, as he once stated that he would rather have a grave in Colombia than a jail cell. That's crazy that even 30 years later, he's still the most famous drug lord of all time. No wonder there's a TV show about his life. Wow, what a cool looking flower. I swear I've seen it before, but from where? Oh, that's right. I used to do a lot of this back in the day. This is the opium flower, the main ingredient for methylmorphine diacetate, or better known as heroin on the streets. There was no one in the world that knew how to make more money off of this flower than the infamous Khun Sa. Like any drug lord, Khun Sa had a complicated childhood. At the age of 3, daddy would abandon the family by dying. And 2 years later, mommy would do the same. Khun Sa never had any formal education growing up, but he had something much more valuable, an overwhelming amount of military training. By the age of 16, while most people were figuring out acne and algebra, Khun Sa was running his own militia. Khun Sa operated in an area called the Golden Triangle. The Golden Triangle is the area where Myanmar, Laos, and Thailand meet. This region was perfect for Khun Sa's operations. Dense jungles and rugged terrain made it hard for the authorities to track him down, as well as the area's combination of warm temperatures and high humidity made it perfect for growing the opium poppy. Khun Sa took full control of the opium trade here, turning the Golden Triangle into his personal kingdom. With well-established smuggling routes and a network of loyal simps, he established himself as the Jeff Bezos of the heroin trade. Khun Sa's operation was so massive that at one point in time, he supplied over 75% of the world's heroin. And although his business tactics were ruthless, some locals saw him as a bit of a Robin Hood. He used his wealth to build up schools, hospitals, and roads, helping out his community whenever he could. By the 1990s, the United States DEA and regional governments were closing in on him, but Khun Sa stayed one step ahead of them the entire time. It wasn't until 1996 when Khun Sa got tired of his 9-to-5. Wow, I'm tired of my 9-to-5. When he finally surrendered, he brokered a deal that allowed him to retire peacefully in Yangon, Myanmar, where he lived until his death in 2007. So yeah, Khun Sa's story proved that sometimes crime does pay. I'm not telling you to become a drug lord, but hey, doesn't hurt to dip your toes in the water. Some people live up to their names. Usain Bolt, fastest man on earth. LaMelo Ball, all-star basketball player. Then there's Christopher Coke. I'm sure you can guess what he got into. Born in Kingston, Jamaica in 1969, Christopher was quite literally born into the family business. His father, Lester Lloyd Coke, also known as Jim Brown, was a Jamaican drug lord and the leader of the Shower Posse gang. Growing up on the streets of Tivoli Gardens, young Christopher didn't dream of becoming a doctor or a lawyer. He was set on taking the throne to his dad's criminal empire. And take the throne he would. After his father's death in 1992, Christopher Coke became the leader of the Shower Posse gang at the age of 23. Although he was known as a marijuana and cocaine distributor, his empire wasn't just about drugs. He was involved in everything from arms trafficking to money laundering. But on the streets, his reputation wasn't bad at all. He would provide many jobs and develop programs for his community. He was kind of a nice guy. But the United States government didn't see it that way. In 2009, they issued an extradition request to Jamaica, demanding that Coke would be handed over. The person and the drugs, of course. What followed was one of the most intense manhunts that Jamaica has ever seen. In May of 2010, the Jamaican government launched a military operation to capture Chris Coke. Kingston turned into a mini war zone with over 70 people killed in the clashes. Coke managed to evade capture for a little while, but in June of 2010, he was finally caught. Now, the way that Coke got caught, I swear you can't make this shit up. He was disguised as a woman. He probably got the idea to cross-dress after watching Eddie Murphy as Rasputia. Extradited to the US, Coke faced charges on drug trafficking, racketeering, and conspiracy. In 2011, he pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 23 years in federal prison, where he still is serving his sentence to this day. Hey, he might be in prison, but at least he lived up to his name. Born in 1943 in Cartagena, Colombia, Griselda was ruthless from the get-go. When she was 3 years old, Griselda and her mother moved to Medellin. This exposed her to the criminal lifestyle at an impressionable age. And recounted by an accomplice of hers, Griselda allegedly kidnapped, attempted to ransom, and shot a child from an upscale neighborhood. Yeah, you heard that right. What the actual fuck? Before she was a teenager, she started to pickpocket for money, and by the age of 19, she ran away from home. Something tells me that when she's older, she's gonna be a problem. By the 1970s, Griselda was making her way into the United States with a suitcase full of ambition and a whole lot of cocaine. She earned the nickname the Black Widow for her tendency to make her husbands disappear. Imagine being married to the psychopath and getting into a minor argument. You'd literally never see the light of day again. Griselda's drug operation was so massive that she smuggled more than 3 tons of cocaine into the US annually, netting around $80 million a month. But her reign of terror wasn't just about drugs. She had a zero-tolerance policy orchestrating hundreds of murders. Apparently, she was so ruthless that Pablo Escobar once stated, "The only man I was ever afraid of was a woman named Griselda Blanco." In 1985, her luck eventually ran out. She was arrested and sentenced to 20 years in prison, but she still ran her empire from behind bars. She was released in 2004 and was deported back to Colombia, where she lived a relatively quiet life. Until September 3rd, 2012, she went to a shop called the Cardizo Butcher Shop in Medellin, and as she exited, an assassin on a motorcycle shot her twice in the head, tragically killing her. That's all for today. Please like and sub for the next one. Cheers.